It's MotorCity Boat Works, and today we're chopping up the boat. Let's go! Hi, this is Joe with MotorCity Boat Works. Welcome back to the shop. About a month ago, I did an episode where I talked about the planning process for my Albin 27 and how I was going to go about putting the boat back together and kind of organizing my thoughts and prioritizing various projects. In that episode, if you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out because it explains kind of what the timeline is and what I'm working on right now throughout the winter. In that episode, I came up with a list of projects that I had to get done before I started laying wire and putting in the plumbing systems for the boat. And one of those projects was working on the rub rail. Now you'll remember the rub rail of the boat is right here. It's the rubber piece that goes across here. Right now, the rub rail's taken off. This is just the hard plastic insert that the rub rail attaches to. But in the process of getting ready to put the new rub rail back on, well, I had to do some painting on the deck and I had to make sure that everything was basically ready to go. And someone posted something online where they had a reoccurring problem with water collecting. Well, never mind. Listen, let me show you. I'm working here on the tow rail of the boat, and what we're gonna do is cut a notch in the tow rail, what they call a limber hole.
Huh?
And the tow rail of the boat is this piece right here. It's raised up from the deck by about an inch. It's made of fiberglass. Purpose of the tow rail is different than the rub rail. This is where the rub rail goes. It's to prevent the boat from rubbing against the dock or something like that. The tow rail, the purpose of the tow rail is to keep your toes on the boat. And what happens is, if a deck was completely flat, well, your foot would constantly want to slip over the side. So they put a tow rail on the deck, and it kind of captures your feet and doesn't make your foot slip over the edge of the boat. So sometimes tow rails on sailboats will have, they'll be made of metal, aluminum or something like that, anodized aluminum, and they may have holes drilled in them all on the tow rail so that you can mount a variety of blocks, pulleys, or equipment and things like that for sail rigging and what have you. So, but on a pocket trawler type of boat like this, the tow rail is just plastic. I mean, it's just fiberglass. And so what we want to do is we want to create a limber hole. Now, a limber hole is a hole, a space where water can drain on a boat. Sometimes limber holes are down in the bilge and they allow bilge water to move between, say, the forward part of the bilge to the aft part of the bilge, where the aft part of the bilge is lower and the water can be pumped out. The hole that would connect two sections of the bilge together, that's called a limber hole. Sometimes limber holes are on the sides of the boat in a bulkhead. On submarines, they're on the sides of the boat. It's to keep the water outside the boat, but allow a place for it to drain, because water does collect on a boat, especially in bad weather. And on the deck of a boat, water will get on the deck and fill up this space because it's got no place to drain. And this is particularly bad in cold weather because, of course, if the water freezes, it can become very slippery and icy, what have you, but it also collects leaves. The deck needs to have really good drainage, and we do that with limber holes. And now scuppers are something different. Scuppers are drains on the deck of a boat or in the cockpit of a boat, and they actually drain down into a tube, into a fitting, sometimes to a sea cock, and they actually the water drains out of the boat, through the bottom of the boat. But on the deck, when the water spills over the side here, this is called a limber hole, and it looks like this. This would be a limber hole. The water would come down here and it sheds off the back of the boat. Here's a limber hole on the more towards the midships there. And that's what we're going to be adding because this particular position on the boat, when it's floating on its water line properly, It turns out it's actually a design flaw, and this is a low spot on the deck, and water pools here on the aft between the two aft windows here, probably about right here. And it's a known thing with Albin 27s that water tends to pool right here. And it won't drain off over here because it's actually a little bit higher, and it won't drain off over there because the deck actually raises up. So there should be a limber hole right here. And I would argue perhaps there should be a limber hole maybe further up, somewhere around the first or second stanchion up there. We'll take a look at that next. We're going to see how difficult it is to cut this. This is like kind of we'll see whether it's solid fiberglass or whether it's just molding. And but either way, we'll be able to cut it, shape it. It's going to look just like the other one there. We'll use epoxy paste to fill it in. And of course, we'll repaint it. You'll never know the difference. It'll be a great spot for water to drain here. And that is our project for today in the boat shop. At these locations on the boat, well, water can collect if the boat's not perfectly balanced. And of course, when you're long-term cruising, well, the boat may never be properly balanced because you always have extra provisions and items and extra weight in the stern or the forward part of the boat. So it's really a good idea to be prepared to ensure that no water is collecting on the deck at any time. Are you enjoying the show? Well, do me a favor. Would you hit the like button and also subscribe? Spread the word about MotorCity Boat Works. No BS, just boats and restoration. Like so many projects during a boat restoration, well, one thing kind of leads to another thing, and you can end up kind of getting sidetracked from what you were originally working on. So many times during my various boat building and boat restoration projects, I remember coming to a point where I had a chance to maybe fix something or change something, and I was too busy working on the primary project, so I put it off, or I never did it. And then after the fact, man, I always regretted not fixing it when I had the chance. Sometimes it's better to stop what you're doing, fix this thing that's popped up, and then move on to something else rather than wait and try and do it down the road. Because let's face it, you're never going to come back around to it. And now's the time to do it. Ask me how I know. I thought I'd make this episode about exactly that. The moment when you get a little sidetracked and you got to make the decision. Should I run down this path and take a detour and fix this thing? Or should I continue on just trying to keep the momentum going on the project? It's a tough choice. So here's how we start this. I take the oscillating tool, I call it the chopper, and I use the chopper to kind of cut out a notch in the fiberglass tow rail. And then I begin to kind of taper in the sides a bunch of tiny little cuts, little kerfs, and take out a little bit of material at a time until I can get it flush with the deck so that water would be able to roll right off the sides of the deck. And then once I got the bulk of the material removed, I want to clean it up a little bit. So I bring out one of my other tools and I kind of start working on lightly sanding it down and tapering everything back so I've got a good surface and I can really see what I'm working with insofar as fiberglass. So I did 4 of these around the boat, 2 on each side, and at least 2 of them were hollow. They did not have any sort of filler or anything inside of the tow rail. So these gaps have got to be filled somehow, and the way we're going to do that is using small pieces of Coosa board that will kind of glue up inside there, and then we'll go ahead and apply epoxy paste. Thickened epoxy paste with like a high density filler to fill the rest of the holes. All right, so we're back in the shop today, and we've filled it in. I went back a third coat with a low density filler to kind of fill in any imperfections or spots that I missed, the high points. Now I'm going to go back and by hand and by using the snake, probably just clean this up a little bit so that this is all ready for primer and paint. So let me introduce you to a great tool. I often struggle with trying to sand into tiny little spaces, especially when you're working on fiberglass, and it can be a challenge to get a piece of paper in there and really sand on it well. It takes a long time, and it just tears up your fingers. Even if you wear gloves, it's just a pain. So I kind of came up with this. Tool. I call it the snake. And it's basically a rotary tool, like a Dremel, some brand, whatever. You can buy a 2-foot, 3-foot flexible cable shaft on Amazon and attach it to your rotary tool. It's like a snake. And then you can basically control it like a pencil and get right up inside there like a dentist would on your teeth. And work an area, work a tight corner, and kind of get it the way you like it. And you can do it all by touch, so it's real precise. And just set the RPM, at an appropriate speed. You kind of got to experiment, but very quickly you'll get the hang of it. And man, it just works fantastic, especially for all these tight corners and places that you just normally can't get into. So here's an example. We're going to get right up in here, right on here like this, and work this here. But like these tight corners and stuff inside here, this is an excellent tool. You can really get in there. And depending on which bit you have on the end, you can really kind of change it around. And this is a Dremel tool here. This is a clamp that goes on top, just a board, and now you're ready to go. Like so. Man, I think it looks pretty good. Now, you may have seen me several times when I'm working on the boat, especially when I'm grinding away at stuff. I'm wearing this crazy get-up here. I look like a homeless person almost. And it's an old torn ratty shirt. It's actually got holes in it from a grinder accident. And you got to wear really nasty clothes when you're doing this kind of work, because the fiberglass and everything just is just terrible stuff. And it will get in your normal clothes, and your normal clothes, if you wash them, it'll contaminate other pairs of clothes, and you'll be itchy all week long wondering why. It's because of the fiberglass dust. So I try and keep my shop clothes separate from everything else, and I have go-to shop clothes that I put on, and until they've got so many holes in them that I can't wear them anymore, I just keep using them. I always get a kick out of these YouTube channels where you have a very attractive young woman, or maybe some 20-something-year-old guy in a tank top, and they're grinding away on fiberglass and talking about their amazing plans for their free sailboat. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are they going to do at the end of the day when they got that fiberglass dust in every nook and cranny? We don't want that fiberglass taken home with us. We want to leave it behind in the shop. So, and my crazy top hat here is it's a nice. My crazy top hat here is actually a neck gaiter that happens to fit my very large head, and I love wearing this thing because it keeps the fiberglass dust out of my hair, for one thing. And also, it actually keeps my head warm. The shop is about 50 degrees, and it's about 30 degrees outside, sometimes less. We try and keep the shop around 50 degrees, 52 degrees. And having a head covering here just kind of helps keep your body heat in, and it makes it very, very comfortable. And in particular, I love this neck gaiter because it's very, very lightweight. Instead of wearing a watch cap, a wool watch cap or something like that, a ski cap, this thing's very, very lightweight, and you almost forget that it's there. And you never really overheat. I find with a watch cap I overheat sometimes in the shop. All right, so here we are. We've got everything repaired. This is the new limber hole. This is the new limber hole for the tow rail here. And man, I think it looks pretty good. Looks like it came that way from the factory, and that's what you want to see. When the limber hole issue first came up, I thought, oh, this is just such a distraction. And now I got to stop what I'm doing. But now, having done this project, it took a couple days. It's absolutely worth it. It just came out fantastic. Now I can get back to working on the rub rail. I'm here to tell you, experience tells me, take the detour. Go down that path, get everything fixed, come back to the main project, and continue on your way. Don't put it off. So much of boat building is about the journey and enjoying the little things as you're working through your project. Just like a trip that kind of takes you out of the way, but then you find something special, take the time to enjoy it. Another great episode. Thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you again next week. Stay motivated. This week's question comes from Eric Fontana from Hopkinton, Massachusetts. And Eric writes, your garage workshop is awesome. Can you go over how you built it? Is it heated? And if possible, can you go over the costs? Eric, I'm going to do an episode just for you where I talk about how the shop was built, some lessons that I learned during the process, and I'll give you an idea of what it cost. If you have a question about MotorCity Boat Works, or any of the work that I do here, please leave a comment. You can contact me through the MotorCity Boat Works website or on the homepage for my YouTube channel. If you like these videos, please hit the subscribe button. These videos would not be possible without your support.